Well, as another baseball season is wrapping up, it's nice to see so many of you are taking yourselves out to the ball game.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. We can be found at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And this episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com, more like Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your big rival. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. We're doing this as a show which is being dropped on Tuesday. And we're going to go right to the trivia question right at the top. And a lot of you, the question was, David Bell just got fired as the manager of the Cincinnati Reds. The interim manager is Freddie Benavides. And the question I asked was, who was the Reds manager before David Bell? And I actually had to look this one up because I got this one wrong. Some of you, a lot of you said my answer, which was Brian Price. But in fact, that was not the case. Brian Price was the manager to begin the 2018 season, but he was fired in April. He didn't make it through the first month. And the manager that was brought in was Jim Riggleman, who for a period of time was kind of the, in case of emergency, break glass manager, that he kind of came in whenever you needed a manager. He was a guy, he managed a whole bunch of teams in his career. He was the manager for the Cubs when they went to the playoffs in was it 1998, the Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire season. But he managed the Padres, he managed the Cubs, he managed half a season with the Mariners. He managed the Nationals and then left town just as the team was about to get good. And then finished up the final, the majority of the 2018 season. And he was a minor league manager for a while as well. His last managerial experience as a minor league manager was in 2022 in the Pioneer League for Billings, Montana. And it's an independent league. He managed that team. The reason I know this is because one of his pitchers on that team was where is he right now? Yeah, I got rid of it. Sean Kiley was one of his pitchers. He was a starting pitcher and reliever. And Sean Kiley is the son of former guest of this podcast, Brian Kiley, who's been a guest on the show, Emmy-winning comedy writer, diehard baseball fan, and his son played under Jim Riggleman. It all comes together. Hey, there's stuff to talk about, and we go over who won baseball. Big news for one of the teams who managed to clinch. But let's just celebrate something here. I'm going to put on a show that I'm going to air, I believe, on Thursday. I shot on location at the Dodger game. And a lot of you seem to see the clip that I put on of the me being mad at the parents who had their kids not see Shohei Ohtani's game-tying homer. A couple of you said it was harsh for me to call them bad parents. No, I call it as I see it. But at the ballpark that day, there was 50-some-odd thousand people. It was an absolutely packed house at Dodger Stadium. And I've been to a couple of different stadiums this year. And yes, I've been to Oakland. And, Oakland, obviously, we all know has had its attendance issues and everything. But according to Thomas Harrigan, in an article written for MLB.com, this is going to be the second straight year of rising attendance in Major League Baseball. Baseball has drawn 68 million fans this year, and that's up nearly 1% from last year. And when you consider 2022, the attendance this is according to MLB.com, the attendance is up almost 10% from 2022 and a 12% increase in weekday attendance. Now, there's some things that you can attribute this to. I think no small part of it is the fact that the game is faster now. I think I've been accused by some people of being crotchety and not embracing change on some aspects, like the stupid Manfred man, the ghost runner on second, I think is atrocious, and I do not like the universal DH. But I do like some changes, and I think the pitch clock has been an absolute unqualified success. I don't think there's any argument against it. I think it has been phenomenal to the pace of the game, the pace of play, the excitement. You don't have people up there getting dressed, undressed in their armor every 2 seconds. Believe me, I was watching I love to watch games of the past. And I was watching games from the 70s on research for this book I'm writing, and I was stunned by how fast the game moved, how quickly the pitchers came in. And then you go back and you watch, I think probably the low point is in the late 2000s, early 2010s, or basically any game where Zach Greinke pitched. And I love Zach Greinke, but holy cow, throw the damn ball. And just tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. It was so much time in between pitches. And I think the fast pace of the game has made it more accessible. You're seeing the time in the games is going down. But as I said before, time of games and pace of play are not synonymous. But in this case, they are linked. The games do move a lot faster. And speaking of speed, and this is where pace of play comes in, some people were against the number of times you can throw to first. Some people are against making the bases larger and having them wear the base runners wearing basically flippers on their feet, on their hands as they run and slide. But I'll tell you something. I'm for anything that brings back the stolen base. I think the era where they were stopped going for stolen bases was such a detriment to the game. Stolen bases are great. There means when someone's on base and you wonder if they're going to steal, it's not this boredom of him on runner on first. You're not going to steal because the roided up dude is trying to hit a 2-run home run. It's going to be a 2-run home run whether you're on first or second. So that's why they stopped stealing. But now let's get some energy going. Let's get some excitement going. And also by banning the shift, I love that because you have more chances for balls getting through the infield. Also, people making potential diving plays. There's no diving play if you're always positioned exactly where the ball is going to go. Also, it fosters more infield hits. Listen to me closely. The most underrated, exciting play in baseball is the infield hit. Yes, it is. When there's a grounder and there's a little bit of chaos and you don't know if the person's going to beat it out and all hell is breaking loose, that is one of the most underappreciated aspects of baseball. And I do think not having the shift allows for more potential for the infield hit. These are little things that are in the back of your head, but it's also like, yeah, let's move it forward. Let's keep not just the time of game going down, but let's increase the pace of play. When there's someone on first expecting to run, that makes the game more exciting. The pace of the play is increased. You're not just sitting back trying to crank home runs out. There are still a few things they need to do, I think, but I do think they've made the game faster and more exciting. But I also think that some stars are starting to burst out of the star power of Ohtani, especially with taking him out of the purgatory of Anaheim, the star power of Bryce Harper, the star power of Aaron Judge, the star power of Mookie Betts. There's stars in this league. The star power of Bryce Harper. There are people who are exciting to watch in this league. Now, what they need to develop is the other side of it, the pitchers. You need to have those star pitchers too. You don't have as many of the aces. You need to start developing aces again because part of the fun of it is to see the star pitcher stare down the star hitter. But you're seeing increasing star power. You're seeing the pace of play better. You're seeing the games don't drag on. And you're seeing there's more excitement on the base paths and in the field. That's cool. And maybe, just maybe, that's the reason why fans are going to the game in increasing numbers. Today's episode of Locked On MLB is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com, more like Booking.yeah. Explore cities all around the United States, especially as a baseball fan. Check out their stadium. Check out the cuisine. And with Booking.com's wide variety of choice across the U.S., you can go incognito to your rival city. Do you know what? I used Booking.com this summer. I went on a fabulous baseball trip. First, I went into Buffalo, and I checked out the Bisons when I was there. And by the way, Buffalo, beautiful city. Then over to Syracuse, where I saw the Syracuse Mets, stayed in a nice, safe hotel there. Then on my way to Cooperstown, where I stayed in a hotel right on the lake, but was still walking distance to the Baseball Hall of Fame. And I did all of it through Booking.com. Booking.com delivers exactly the right stay for you in this country. And Booking.com can help you book a stay that's so close to where you want to be. No matter what team you're rooting for this postseason, Booking.com can make you a fan of any U.S. city. From hotels that look over stadiums to that fabulous place I stayed in Cooperstown, Booking.com has so many choices. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals. Booking.com. Yeah, Booking.yeah. Hey, let's hear from our friends over at FanDuel. You can start your season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you play your first $5 bet. Go to America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com. All right, now let's talk a little bit about who owned baseball for the 23rd day of September. Only 4 games were played, so this was kind of easy to figure some of the stuff out. Matt Chapman reached base 3 times, including a home run, and the Giants doubled up the Diamondbacks 6-3. The Giants are basically playing spoiler right now, but that Diamondbacks loss is pretty tough. I'll talk about that in a second. Bryce Miller threw 7 innings of 2-hit shutout balls, struck out 5 Astros, turned the 6-1 decision for Seattle, and his teammate Julio Rodriguez collected 3 hits, stole a base in the Mariners' 6-1 win over the Astros. This is preventing the Astros from getting closer to a clinch, but also this pushes Seattle a tiny bit closer back to the wild card. As of this recording, the Mariners are a game and a half out of a wild card spot. And for Mariner fans who may be pulling hair out of their head because they're thinking, you know what, if they just didn't play so horribly after the All-Star break, they'd be a tiny bit closer. A win here or a win there, and they'd be half a game out of a playoff spot with fewer than a week to play. But give Bryce Miller and Julio Rodriguez some credit for keeping the Mariners in it. Aaron Nola allowed 2 runs in 6 innings to help the Phillies top the Cubs 6-2 and clinch the division title. Half wobs, Hunter Brown struck out 8 Mariners in 6 innings. And Jason Hayward, it's weird, he's with the Astros. He homered in the Astros loss 6-1. Geraldo Perdomo had a big game for the D-backs, but they lost. And I had a hard time pulling a Cub pitcher or a Diamondback pitcher worthy of a half wob. So I gave it to Gavin Hollowell, a reliever for the Cubs, who pitched an inning in the 3rd scoreless. The Mariners basically need to win out, and they have a tough job of it playing the Houston Astros. It's going to be a real frustrating offseason for the Mariners if they fall short again, especially, and I made this point before, they have a good pitching staff. If they made the postseason, they'd be really dangerous. But here we are. But great news for the Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies for the first time since 2011, won the National League East. Now, of course, they won the pennant a couple of years ago, but as a wild card team. And the Phillies, who had been had watched the Braves and watched the Nationals and watched the Mets win the divisions in those years, guess what? They're back in it. They're back in the playoffs, and they're probably going to be one of the two teams that gets a bye. And we'll see whether or not that winds up being a positive or a negative for them. But you take a look at the team, and I think I picked them to win the World Series at the beginning of the year. And you take a look with a rotation of Nola, who pitched great today, Wheeler, who pitched terrific the other day, Sanchez and Ranger Suarez. That's a good 1, 2, 3, 4. And their redone bullpen with Estevez and Ryan Kierkeling and Jose Alvarado and Jeff Hoffman. This is a deep bullpen. Now, the MLB was putting up stuff of like, this was their record against this team, this is their record against that team. Totally meaningless, completely meaningless, because it's pages have been turned. Last year, or a few years ago, the Dodgers absolutely manhandled the San Diego Padres, and the Padres beat them in the postseason. The Phillies are going to go into the postseason with a lineup of Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Castellanos, Bohm, Stopp, and Realmuto 1 through 7. That's airtight. Now they're going to have to mix and match because their outfield isn't they're in their left and center field positions. You have Hayes, you have Rojas, you have Cal Stevenson. I would give Weston Wilson a start because he hit for the cycle and had a couple of big games for the Phils. We're going to see if Cody Clemens or Edmundo Sosa get it, bust through the lineup. But the first 7 spots are airtight. And so those final 2 spots, if I were running the Phillies, and I'm not, I would just go with your two best defensive outfielders in 8th and 9th, because the bats at the top of the lineup will make it up for it. The rotation is going to be interesting. Zach Wheeler is obviously going to be your game 1 starter. I think, it's going to be between Sanchez and Nola, 2 and 3. I would go Nola, but what do I know? Sanchez has been very good, and Suarez is going to be your number 4. So that means that if some combination of Wheeler, Sanchez, and Nola win 2 games out of the first 3, they can start Sanchez in game 4 and not have to push Wheeler into a short start and a short rest situation. Estevez is going to anchor the bullpen, and then you're going to have Strom, Alvarado, Hoffman, Kierkeling, Ruiz has pitched well, and they may even have Taijuan Walker out of the bullpen. I like the pitching depth of this Phillies team, and I really like the lineup. Now, hopefully they won't have the whole week off situation. Hopefully they can get to the division series faster, because I do think having a week off is a detriment. But this Phillies team, which got over the hump and won the division, is in a position to go very far, especially because I like the depth of their pitching staff. Now, right now, they're probably going to get the bye, and whether or not they finish ahead of Los Angeles, we will soon see. But congratulations to the National League Eastern Division champions, Philadelphia Phillies. When we come back, we're going to honor someone who is not on a championship team this year. And do you know what? That's not the point. They're still worth honoring. Let's hear from our friends at Game Time. You know what Game Time is? That's the place to get your tickets, and I'm using it big time. I'm going to go see games at Dodger Stadium and in Oakland before this week is over. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. You don't waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And Game Time has seat views. You get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. They have all-in pricing. There's no surprise fees on this, and that has the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit 110% of your difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Now let's give an honor to Charlie Blackmon. Charlie Blackmon announced that this is going to be it. He's hanging up his spikes. He played 118 games this year for the Colorado Rockies. It wasn't bad. He hit 11 home runs. His OPS was 718. His OPS plus was 93. He basically was a slightly below average player, but for a 37-year-old, that's not bad. He broke in with the Rocks in 2011 and was an all-star in 2014, 2017, 2018, and 2019. He was a Silver Slugger a couple of times and finished in the top 5 of the National League MVP vote in 2017 when he led the league in hits, in triples, in runs scored, and was the batting champion with a total bases of 387. He also made the All-Star team each of the next couple of years. He had 37 home runs in that fabulous 2017 season and was part of the 2018 squad that came within one win of giving the Rockies their first ever division title. Charlie Blackmon looked like he was a mountain man in Georgia. The native of Texas wound up going to high school and college in Georgia, and he played his whole career with the Rocks. He was a lifer with the Rocks and played alongside some great Rocky players and had some terrific years. His first year was 2011 when he was under Jim Tracy, and he played alongside Todd Helton and Carlos Gonzalez and Dexter Fowler and some of the other players several other players who were left over from the 2007 National League champion. He played for 2 playoff teams with Colorado, 27 and 2018. But there's something about him I want to honor. He never was on a huge team. He had one great year and a bunch of very good years. He was never the superstar of Major League Baseball. He was never the poster boy or the front of MLB The Game or however you want to judge your stars. He's going to be beloved by Rocky fans. Played 14 seasons with the Rocks and put up some great numbers. He was a 40 steal man back in 2015 and a 30 home run man twice in his career. But he also was an exciting player, a dynamic player, and some of the Rocky fans can point to and say, hey, he belonged to us. And you never saw him in another team. He never cashed in and went to another squad or this, that, or the other. He was a Rocky. And for a fan who followed the Rocks between 2011 and now, he was a homegrown real Rocky and a fan favorite. And there's no doubting that. He's not going to make it to the Hall of Fame. He'll be on the ballot. He played enough years to be on the ballot. He's not going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's not going to have his number retired. He's going to have his memory kind of faded. For people who are 7 or 8 year old now in Denver, they'll go on and find someone else who they can point to and say, hey, that was my guy. But he's the type of player that is essential in baseball. It's not always about being the MVP. It's not always being about a World Series title. Sometimes it's about that person who is on your team that you can relate to, that you can know they're going to be on your squad, and you can invest some emotion to them. And when you're watching the Rockies, he's someone who you can feel, oh, he's been here a while. He's one of my favorites. You can invest that emotion because he's part of those teams that are your companion. From 2011 to 2024, twice he played the postseason. So for most of those years, the Rockies were also Rams. They stink this year. But if you live in Denver or you have some connection to Colorado and you want to have a baseball game on all year, for 14 years, he was one of your friends. And that's something I think about a lot as the season winds down. Yes, they expand the playoffs and there's more teams allowed in there, but there's still also Rams. There's all teams that aren't going to make it. Chances are the Mariners are not going to make it unless they have a great last week. But if you're a fan of a team, you're with them day in and day out. It's part of the rhythm of this sport. It isn't always about winning championships. Hell, it can't possibly be for Colorado. But you still have some players like that. You can say, yeah, growing up, he was one of my favorites. One of my favorites growing up was Butch Hobson, growing up in the suburbs of Boston. which Hobbs had never played in the postseason. But he was someone I attached a lot of my memories to and someone to root for. If you're over in Oakland, you're cheering on a Brent Rooker. You know Brent Rooker is going to be playing the postseason, not last year, not this year, not next year. But you can attach some emotion because when you were going through that summer, he was there with you. So a tip of the hat for someone who a generation from now probably won't remember him. But if you grew up in this era in Denver, he was probably your friend. Which leads us to our trivia question about the Colorado Rockies. I asked a similar question about this with the Brewers. I thought I knew the answer to this question. It turns out I don't. What pitcher has won the most games in Colorado Rockies history? The most games as a Rocky. That's your trivia question. So put it down here at YouTube or on Locked On MLB on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. And I'm your pal Sully at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Saying, cool. Attendance is up. The Phillies are in. And Charlie Blackmon, we salute you. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.